Welcome again. My name is Jeffrey Hodges from Sports Mind, and I'm going to continue today with my series of videos on how to improve your sports performance through mental training. And today I want to talk about a really important topic. It's called your core of confidence, because it's going to help you build your resilience and self-esteem. So if you've ever been to Thailand, Bangkok in Thailand, one of the touristy things that you can do is do what's called the temple tour, where you pile on into a bus with a heap of other tourists and go and visit the main Buddhist temples in the city, like this. And one of these temples is called the Temple of the Golden Buddha. And when you walk in, you come face to face with a 3-meter tall golden Buddha. It's solid gold. It weighs 5.5 tons and is the largest solid gold statue in the world. And the value of the gold alone is over $200 million. Now, the interesting thing about this golden Buddha is that they only discovered it was solid gold back in 1955. And prior to that, it was thought to be an ordinary clay Buddha because it was covered, the gold Buddha was covered in a thick layer of clay or stucco, similar to this as you see on the screen. However, in 1955, they decided to move what they thought was this clay Buddha to a new temple. And they called in, the workmen to move the Buddha and so on. And the Buddha's picked up by a large crane, and it's held up in the air by ropes. And there's a big storm coming, so all the workmen are rushing around trying to get the Buddha moved before the storm comes. And suddenly one of the ropes breaks, and the Buddha falls to the ground and cracks. And of course, this is a Buddhist country, so all the workmen run away because they think, oh my goodness, bad karma, because we've just cracked the Buddha. And so the monks come out and quickly cover this clay, what they think to be a clay Buddha, up with tarp because the storm's coming, and the storm comes and the rain comes. And when finally the rain goes, the storm ends, one of the monks comes late at night out, and looks under the tarp, and he sees this glint coming from one of the cracks in this, what they thought was a clay Buddha. And he investigates and he scrapes a little bit away and suddenly discovers underneath the clay, there's this solid golden Buddha, which is extraordinary. Now, apparently, according to the history of this, because it was obviously researched in great detail after the monks discovered it, how did it get to be a gold Buddha? They realized that where the Buddha was originally from, up in North Thailand, the Burmese army was invading at that time. And the monks who ran the monastery where the Buddha was knew the Burmese army would just melt down the Buddha, so they covered it up with clay. And when the Burmese army came, obviously they killed everyone, and so none of the monks were left alive who knew the story of the golden Buddha underneath the clay until 1955. Now, I tell you this story because I believe that all of us have within us a golden Buddha, or what I call your core of confidence. And this core of confidence has been covered up over the years with fears, doubts, criticisms, rejections, negative thoughts, and other muck. In order to become a more successful athlete, more successful sports person, you want to chip away that negativity and perform from that core of confidence within you. This talk is all about how to get in touch with that core of confidence within you and build your self-esteem and resilience. Now, perhaps you might be thinking, I feel pretty good about myself. I don't need to improve my self-esteem. Yet the fact is that in psychological tests that measure self-esteem, 2 out of 3 people show low self-esteem. This means that right here in the room, if you look to the person on your left and look to the person on your right, one of you is okay, but the other 2 are in trouble. And it's important to understand that self-esteem is not someone else's problem. We all want to work on building our own self-esteem every day. Many people think, I feel okay, self-esteem must be the problem for drug addicts, or a problem for people from broken homes, or people who were abused as children, or people with mental disorders. Yet the fact is that 35% of our population, less than 35% of the population, feel really worthwhile about themselves. And this is important because it's now recognized that one of the major contributing factors in drug abuse, criminal behavior, marriage problems, teenage pregnancies, unemployment, and other social ills is low self-esteem. Low self-esteem is at the core of all these social problems. And it seems to get worse as you get older. One study found that at the start of school, over 80% of the children starting school in grade 1 or preschool had high self-esteem. By the time those kids got to grade 5, only 20% had a feeling of strong self-worth about themselves. And by the time the children left school, only 5% actually felt good about themselves. What does that say about school? In another study, 1,000 teachers and 1,000 parents were asked, who is responsible for building self-esteem in children? 72% of the parents said, oh, it's the teacher's job. 78% of the teachers said, no, it's the parents' job. So everybody thinks it's somebody else's job. The reality is, it's your job. It's up to you to build your own self-esteem and confidence. You are responsible for your own self-esteem. Now, the good news is that self-esteem can be improved. Whatever level your self-esteem is at the moment, you can build it up. And now the next question that always comes up is, why is self-esteem important? Now, I like to explain by using the poker chip theory of life. And it goes like this. If I'm playing poker with 3 other blokes, if I have a lot of chips, then I feel comfortable about participating in the game, don't I? For example, if I'm playing poker with John and Michael and Trevor here, and they've all got 200 chips in front of them, and I've only got 10 chips, who do you think would be playing more cautiously? Of course I would be. You know, why? Because I've got less to lose. I can only make 5 bets of 2 chips before I'm out of the game. Whereas the other guys, they can make 100 bets of 2 chips before they're out. So the fewer poker chips you have, the more fearful you are of losing the little that you've got, and the less risks you take in the poker game. Now, self-esteem is a lot like poker chips, and we all have a certain number of self-esteem chips. The more self-esteem chips you have, the more you participate in life, and the more risks you're willing to take. If you only have a few self-esteem chips, you tend to sit back and not risk the little that you've got. Now, the important thing to realize is that in order to succeed in life, to succeed in school, in relationships, in business, and especially in sport, you want to take risks. You have to take risks. You want to take a chance. You see, every time you apply for a job, you risk not getting it and losing some self-esteem chips. Every time you ask someone out on a date, you risk being rejected and losing some chips. Every time you go out to play your sport, you risk making a silly mistake or losing the game and losing some self-esteem chips. Of course, in all those situations, there's also the chance that you'll get the job, that you'll be successful with your date, or put in an outstanding performance for your team that wins the match, all of which will increase your supply of self-esteem chips, won't it? But you have to risk losing first, don't you? So in order to feel comfortable about taking risks, we want to have a big pile of self-esteem chips. So if I don't get the job, or if that person doesn't like me, or if I lose the match, hey, it's okay. I still feel good about myself. I've still got plenty of self-esteem chips left. In order to participate, you want to feel good about yourself. But in order to feel good about yourself, you have to participate. So it's like this cycle, isn't it? By participating, you have the opportunity to build up your stock of self-esteem chips. But in order to participate in the first place, You want to have a big stack of chips already. Now, what do you think? It'd be helpful if you pause the video for a few minutes and just reflect on how this relates to you. So let's relate this information back to sport. Does self-esteem help me in my sport? Will increasing my stock of self-esteem chips improve my sports performances? And the answer is yes, definitely, 100%. And the reason is that the more self-esteem you have, the better you're able to weather the tough times. The more self-esteem you have, the better you're able to weather the tough times. The times when you make a silly mistake. The times when you have a bad day or a slump in form. The times when someone criticizes you. The times when you get injured. And we've all had times like that, haven't we, in our sport? High self-esteem makes you more resilient as an athlete. Also, the more self-esteem you have, the more risks you take. And in sport, you have to risk to win, don't you? You have to risk. If you're a tennis player, every time you serve, you risk double faulting, don't you? And the player with low self-esteem, therefore, often only serves at three-quarter pace because they don't want to double fault. They're afraid of double faulting. While the player with a high self-esteem faces up to the challenge, takes the risks, serves at full pace, and often aces the opponent. If you're a rugby or soccer or netball player, every time the ball is passed to you, you risk dropping it or losing it to the opposition. If you have low self-esteem and you get the opportunity to score a goal, you'll often pass it on to someone else because you don't want to take the risk of missing the goal, making a mistake and looking foolish. On the other hand, if you've got high self-esteem, you grasp the opportunity and go for it yourself. Now, as I mentioned, we all have a certain number of self-esteem chips. Whenever you walk in the room, you walk in with your self-esteem chips. And every day, just to be alive, we're using them up. Just to be alive is to take risks, isn't it? So you're always using up some chips every day. So it is important to continually work on building your self-esteem, on making a bigger pile of chips for yourself every day. So I want to show you how to build up those self-esteem chips in you so you can comfortably take more risks and be more successful. To do that, we first want to understand what self-esteem is and what it is not. So what is self-esteem? Self-esteem is not real in a concrete sense, is it? It's not like a book or a pen or a chair or a lectern, or a cup of flour or a bottle of water. You can't go and get me a kilo of self-esteem, can you? You can't go and buy a bottle of self-esteem pills. Now, the best description of self-esteem I've ever come across is that self-esteem is a feeling of being lovable and capable. When I feel liked, when I know there are people who love and care for me, and when I feel capable in my work or school or sport, then I have high self-esteem. So when I feel I belong somewhere, that people want me to be part of a group or a team, when they invite me over to their place to visit, when I have friends who enjoy my company, then I feel lovable, don't I? When I feel competent that I can handle whatever life presents me with, when I feel adequate to the tasks set me at work, school, sport, then I feel capable. Having high self-esteem is to feel both lovable and capable. Now, I said that self-esteem is not a concrete thing, it's a feeling. You can't buy it, you can't steal it, so how do you get it? Where does self-esteem come from? The most important relationship any of us have is our relationship with our parents. And the way our parents treated us when we were young children was most important, especially our mothers. Mothers are important in building self-esteem in their children. Certainly fathers as well, but mothers appear to have a greater significant influence. And especially from the time when you were born until you were about 7 or 8 years old, it's suggested that 85% of our adult reactions, including our self-esteem, 85% of our feelings and behaviors were programmed into us by the time we were only 7 or 8 years old. During this period, we took on board all of the comments from people around us, both positive and negative, and started to develop our own self-talk, which described who we are. So we build and maintain our own self-image and our own self-esteem with the words and pictures we hold in our mind about ourselves. Now recognize and understand that you build your own self-esteem with the thoughts and images you picture in your mind. And it's not what other people say to you that matters, but rather what you say to yourself after they stop talking. For example, I could go up to a player and say to them, "John, you're the best, most outstanding player I've seen in 30 years of coaching. You know, you've got so much raw talent and ability and a natural flair for the game. It's a real pleasure to coach you. You're really going to go far." Now, if inside their head they thought to themselves, "Yes, he's right, I am pretty good," how do you think their self-esteem would be? It would be up, right? It would be high. But the thing is, that person, John, could be thinking to himself, "Oh, he doesn't really mean that. He's just feeling sorry for me. I've been playing pretty badly lately. I'm slower than Michael, and David over there is a lot stronger and fitter than me." If he was saying that to himself after I gave him that positive message, his self-esteem would be down, wouldn't it? On the other hand, I could go up to another player, Michael, and say, "Michael, you're the worst bloody player I've seen in all my life. You know, you're slow, you fumble the ball all the time, you're totally hopeless under pressure. I give up. No amount of coaching is going to help you at all." And if they said something to themselves like in their head, "Yes, he's right. I am the dork of the universe. Even my mother doesn't like me," how is their self-esteem going to be? Down, of course. But they could be thinking, even though I gave him this bad feedback, he could be thinking to himself, "Oh, who is this guy? He's supposed to be a positive speaker, and here he is insulting me in front of all these people. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know me. You know, I play well under pressure, I train hard, I've never missed a training session all season, and I'm a real team player." In which case, if that was his self-talk, then his self-esteem would be built up, wouldn't it? So it doesn't matter what other people say. It's not what other people say to you or about you that matters, but rather what you say to yourself after they stop talking. And it doesn't matter whether they're saying positive or negative things to you or about you. What matters is whether you say positive or negative things to you. How you communicate to you is all important in building self-esteem. For instance, if you've ever been in a relationship and the other person leaves you, you have two ways of communicating to yourself. You might say to yourself, "Oh, they left me because I'm not attractive enough. I'm not very interesting. I got too big a nose." In which case, you're going to lose a lot of self-esteem chips, aren't you? On the other hand, you might think to yourself and said, "Oh, well, thank God they left me. Now it'll make room in my life for someone who's really right for me." You know, in which case, you're going to add to your stock of chips, aren't you? I love that picture. I mean, look at that little girl on the right there, at the top left. You know, she's just spitting chips. The key thing is to make sure you're saying the kinds of words to yourself and building the kind of self-image that will enhance your self-esteem rather than erode it. Now, the trouble is, for a lot of people, thoughts and feelings just seem to happen to them, apparently beyond their conscious control. If someone rejects them or insults them, they say they can't help it. "I can't help feeling bad." This, of course, is garbage. Thoughts don't just happen to you. Feelings don't just happen to you. Imagination doesn't just happen. No one is holding a gun to your head and saying, "Oh, you must think such and such or feel in such and such a way, otherwise I'll shoot you." Is there? You know, you choose your thoughts, you choose your feelings, and you choose the things you imagine. Who's driving the bus up there? Having said this, the belief that thoughts just happen and can't be helped is widespread, and many people want training They need training in controlling their own thoughts. And so there are two simple techniques that I want to teach you now that will help you. They're called monitoring and filtering. And they're essential tools for enhancing your self-esteem. So firstly, monitoring is a mental checking system which monitors and evaluates your own thoughts to ensure that you only think and imagine those things that are positive and in harmony with your goals so that they take root in your mind. You don't let any weeds grow in your head. That's called monitoring your own thinking. However, because we get messages from other people as well, parents, work colleagues, coaches, teachers, employers, friends, and so on, it's also important to have a similar checking system on the communications we receive from other people. This is called filtering. Filtering is a process of critically assessing any comments or feedback that you receive from anyone else, whether they're a friend or not a friend, and deliberately challenge any negative statements and replace them in your mind with positives. Probably the single most important issue that either builds or destroys your self-esteem and confidence is how you deal with errors, mistakes, poor performances, losses, failure, and rejection in your life. Look, you're not going to win every match you play. Not everyone is going to like you or want you on the team. Not everyone will want to go out on a date with you. You're going to have the occasional bad day and poor performance. You're not going to get every job that you apply for, are you? So the strategies you have to deal with those times, the strategies you have for dealing with failure and rejection in your life are really the key to whether you have a strong, positive self-esteem or not. Think for a few minutes how you deal with mistakes, poor performances, failure, and rejection in your life. How do you deal with those times? What do you say to yourself when one of those things happens to you? What do you imagine about yourself and picture in your mind? How do you feel when one of those events happen in your life? Again, I encourage you to pause the video and consider those questions just for a couple of minutes. Top performers don't dwell on mistakes or failures or rejections. They keep their sights set on their goals and choose to feel capable and confident no matter what happens. And this is one of the reasons they have the determination and courage to persist. So how might you respond instead? How could you think and imagine differently that would allow you to feel more positive in those negative situations? Few people have learned how to respond to errors or mistakes in a way that corrects the error while maintaining their strong self-esteem. Mistakes do call for correction, not criticism. So I'd like to introduce you to a couple of mental techniques now, the ARIA and ALIA processes. The ARIA process is for dealing with errors. And what you do, if a mistake occurs, you firstly acknowledge the mistake with detachment. That stands for the A, acknowledge. Secondly, you release the mistake, throw it away. After you've learned from it, you just let it go, throw it away. Thirdly, you imprint visually what you wanted to have done. You imprint the correct behavior visually in your mind. Imagine yourself doing that. And then finally, the last A, ask yourself to do it this way next time. And sometimes you can accompany this process with words like, stop it, it's not like me, next time do it this way. This is also an excellent way to correct the mistakes of others that corrects their error or their mistake and provides a clear picture of the desired behavior you want them to exhibit, but maintains their self-confidence and self-esteem. So you're just correcting the error rather than criticizing the error. Try it now. Think of an error or a mistake that you've made in your sport recently. Maybe you've double faulted, or maybe you fumbled the ball, or you missed the goal you should have got, the penalty shot. Walk yourself through this ARIA process with it, because believe me, the key to success in sport is being able to deal with errors and mistakes in a way that allows you to learn from that error and yet still feel confident and good about yourself. Now, lots of people want to correct their mistakes, but it's just as important to reinforce the good times, times when you did well. Use the ALIA technique for this. And again, the ALIA process is as follows. So you've just done a brilliant service ace, or you've just done a really good performance in your sport. So acknowledge to yourself, replay it. Love yourself for doing it. Choose to feel good. Replay in your mind, imprint visually in your mind by replaying that experience. And again, ask yourself to do it next time. Again, try it now. Think of something you've done well recently in your sport and walk through this ALIA process with it. Doing the ARIA and ALIA processes regularly will help to establish healthy mental mechanisms for dealing with errors and good times. And once this becomes subconscious and automatic, it will increase your self-esteem every day. Finally, an important thing to realize is that now that you're an adult, you have the ability to challenge any negative statements people make about you and deliberately shield yourself using the monitoring and filtering techniques I told you about. However, you weren't able to do that when you were a young child. And many people took on board a lot of negative comments from their parents that didn't encourage positive self-talk. And this has really eroded their self-esteem. And so they started out with only a very small pile of self-esteem chips. This is where we all want to reparent ourselves. Reparenting is focusing on the lovable part of self-esteem, giving ourselves the feeling of being loved. Take responsibility for giving yourself the kind of nurturing support that maybe you didn't get from your parents, the kind of positive encouragement to go for your dreams and to believe in yourself. And the way to do this is to deliberately say positive, encouraging words to yourself as if you were your own loving parent and you wanted to encourage yourself. You want to give yourself the kind of positive parenting messages you may have missed out on as a child. For example, here's some examples. I'm proud of you, John. I really love you, Mary. You're so clever, David. You can do it, Jeffrey, Helen, or whoever. And you add some of comments of your own. What would you have liked your parents to have said to you when you were growing up that they maybe didn't say? What would you like them to say to you now? Write down a couple of sentences that are especially for you, a couple of short positive phrases. Now, some people say, isn't this being conceited or bragging? No, it's not. It's a simple recognition that I like myself and I'd rather be me than anyone else. Do you feel that way about yourself? Do you like yourself? Do you really like yourself? One way to tell is to simply say out loud, I like myself. If you really do, you won't have any problem with that. Try it now. As you're listening to this video, say it out loud. Say, I like myself. 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 Go on, do it. Give it a go. Now, other people mightn't like you or think you're handsome or intelligent or talented, but that's okay. You can have your experience of you and still allow them to have their experience of you. The important thing is that your experience of you is a positive one that builds your self-esteem. Now, one final technique, one final little exercise that I'd like to end with is called the mirror exercise. And it's a great way to reinforce positive self-image, positive self-esteem by focusing on your physical body. Because many people feel bad about some aspect of their physical body. And negative thinking about your body is one of the primary causes for low self-esteem. So here's your challenge. Rip off your clothes, get naked, look at yourself in a full-length mirror, and loudly say to your body that you like it, particularly those parts of you which you've judged harshly in the past. Your homework for tonight and for every night for the next 30 days for 1 minute is to simply do that. Stand naked in front of a full-length mirror and go through your body. Say, I really love you arms. I really love you big nose. I really love you chin. I really love you tummy. Whatever it is. And you'll build your self-esteem and your resilience, and you'll be a better sports person. Thanks for your time. And if you're interested, that's my website, sportsmind.com.au, and I've got some other free videos and some other relaxation and visualization exercises that you can download, as well as some books. And we've got some coaching, both from myself and my colleague Helen Cole from Sportsmind Gold Coast. Thanks for listening.